Okay, so today I just wanted to talk. I mentioned it in the prior video, the Julian Assange arrest, because there's been a lot of kind of blanket misinformation because Julian Assange has fallen to the extent he had any favor, he's fallen out of favor with the left, except for a few sincere anti-war progressives, people like Jimmy Dore and Aaron Mate and Glenn Greenwald, of course, who are actually sticking up for the right of people to disseminate and disclose information that's harmful to the powers that be. And my friend Michael Malice had a great tweet the other day in response to this. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, here it is. Let's be clear. Julian Assange is not a journalist. He uncovered and released information that the political establishment and government wanted to stay hidden. Does that sound like the work of a journalist? And this kind of got to the heart. I think The Onion also published an article to the same effect. Basically, what Julian Assange was doing, and I don't even think journalist is the right word, because it is disclosing uncomfortable truths about the political establishment, the military industrial complex, and the intelligence agencies that have tried to hijack our electoral system, as opposed to Russia, which bought a few stupid ads and Bernie Sanders' coloring book that was published after the election. These people actually have tried to manipulate and interfere in our elections and interfere in the administration after the elections already happened. They've tried to subvert, literally launching a non-military stealth coup, and they're still trying to do it, and yet we're focused on the chimera of Julian Assange and his supposed links to Russia. And it's all because he embarrassed the political establishment, all because these people, all of them, the intelligence agencies, the media, the legacy media, the Democratic Party, the people in charge of the country wanted her to be president. They wanted her coronation, and he interrupted that. And that's the reason he's being dragged into this morass. There's no other explanation. The ostensible indictment is for helping Bradley Manning at the time to access Department of Defense files illegally. Now, I'm not going to comment on whether or not he actually participated in that, or whether he was simply a repository, someone who Manning used as a means of disclosing illegal, unconstitutional policies pursued by the U.S. government. But the fact is, if he did not collaborate directly with Bradley Manning, if he did not actually hack or assist in hacking into the Pentagon or U.S. intelligence agencies, then he hasn't committed a crime. Because if he has, then 99% of the journalists in Washington, D.C. have committed a crime, because they've been privy to leaks from virtually every single government agency. Journalists could not operate without accessing information that was obtained illegally. That's how it works, especially in Washington, D.C. And most of these people do not. For example, I mean, look at Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein. They're lauded by the left and progressives, and especially by the media. They they have had adulatory coverage for the past half century or more. Now that was, what was it, 73? So yeah, nearly a half century. They've been praised for how brave they were, when what they actually did was be on the receiving end of information from Mark Felt, someone who was mad because he wasn't named at because Nixon didn't name him as director of the FBI. So he took revenge by disclosing information that he obtained illegally. And these people are heroes to the media. And yet Julian Assange discloses information that implicates that basically confirms what everyone knew, that the Democratic Democratic primaries were rigged, that Hillary Clinton is a criminal, is an evil person. I mean, this is a woman who is on the front page of the Daily Mail recently for basically pushing Vince Foster, ostensibly one of her best friends, to suicide. She caused Vince Foster to take his own life. It's hard to think of a politician, even though I hold them in very low esteem generally, and I don't think any of them are really above contempt, with a few exceptions like Thomas Massey and even Rand Paul, a few others. But even by those standards, Hillary Clinton is just a reprehensible individual, and they're mad. They're so butthurt over the fact that this uniquely terrible human being wasn't allowed to seize power, wasn't granted, and uniquely terrible candidate wasn't foisted on the American people. And as punishment, they're going to try to throw Julian Assange into a dungeon. And um, it's no surprise that she came out recently after this happened. Hillary Clinton said that Julian Assange should pay for what he did. Well, when is Hillary going to pay for her multiple felonies, for her just wicked, just horrible contribution to public service over the past half century? That's a question. When is she going to pay? Now, whatever you think of Julian Assange's character, and I'm not one of the people that's going to vouchsafe for his character. He may be a terrible individual. I'm not going to comment on whether or not he's an anti-Semite or whether he's a rapist. But even putting those things aside, just imagine someone else, someone of less, who's less idiosyncratic and less, who's more, who you think more highly of. Imagine someone like that being punished for essentially preventing Hillary Clinton from becoming president, for disclosing information that's helpful to American voters, which is something the media almost never does. They're reliant upon disinformation, complacency, and pulling the wool over our eyes, and lobbying for more censorship, for taking away sources of information, not just from Julian Assange, but from Alex Jones, whom whatever faults you might impute to him, is at least trying to present an alternative viewpoint on some things, like the 2016 presidential election. But they're trying to suppress information. They're trying to do the opposite of what Julian Assange is doing, whether or not you think of him as a journalist or a publisher or simply a gadfly. The fact is, he has given us information that the media, that the government studiously tried to suppress and is trying to suppress. So, I mean, the contrast between him and one of his critics, like the neocon paid neocon propagandist Michael Weiss couldn't be greater. The fact that this guy who's on the payroll of the Weekly Standard, who published just propaganda to get us into every single war imaginable, from Libya to Syria to who knows what little hotspot, he advocated for us sacrificing blood and treasure for no good reason. And this was another guy, just like John McCain. He was photographed with jihadists, with Sunni jihadists in Syria, and now he wrote this spittle-flecked column, hurling invective and second and third-hand accusations at Julian Assange. When the fact is, it's all irrelevant. Even if you think Julian Assange is a loathsome individual, if you have any concern about freedom of information, you should be deathly afraid of what this portends for the rest of the country. I mean, they're already trying to crack down on speech and on websites, closing websites, attacking payment processors for anyone who dares to gainsay conventional wisdom. And this is just this isn't an isolated incident. It's not just about Julian Assange. So try to take the focus away from him and think of what this portends for any publisher who discloses facts that are inconvenient. Like I said in the other video, compare the justice, quote unquote, the justice being applied to Jussie Smollett, who's a friend of Barack Obama, to the justice being applied to Julian Assange, an enemy of Barack Obama, and you see the justice system is not all it's cracked up to be.